YouTube, Karen. I'll welcome anybody. Actually, we are live on YouTube. Welcome anybody who is tuning in to listen to the meeting. So, Karen, would you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Kathleen.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Neil.
Here.
Jake.
Here.
Debbie. No Debbie. Okay.
Okay, and I guess Karen did just add some things, some people to the roll as they log in. Okay, so as the first thing then I think as we proceed with the agenda is we do need to add a few things to the agenda. And so, well, actually, no, we're just going to add some things to one of the reports, I think. So we will deal with that as we progress through the agenda rather than having to change the agenda as such. Okay. So first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. Could I get a motion, please, to approve those minutes?
I'll set the motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Neil. And a second?
I can second.
Thank you, Kathleen. And folks, if you take a moment to just review those, please. Again, with thanks, Karen. Very complete job on the set of minutes. Certainly helps as we record meetings, right? You know, I've certainly heard that more than once. It definitely enables us to have a good record of meetings. So I know when I've had to do meetings at minutes, I've become master of the one-page minutes, but they've certainly not been as comprehensive a record as we have here. So thank you very much. Any comments, questions, or concerns, folks, with the minutes?
No.
Right, thanks, Neil. I'm seeing some shakings of the head. So that being said, then I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes, Karen, would you call that roll, please?
Steve.
Yes.
Neil.
Yes.
Kathleen.
Yes.
Jake.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. I don't believe we have any personal appearances at present, nor do we have incoming or outgoing correspondence. So we can go, I think, straight to staff reports, and the first one being revenue and expenditures. Andrew, are you taking us through that?
Yeah, so I printed the both of these reports for the month of May. And if you recall, last month, there was a little bit of a snafu with printing the payment registers because it included the amounts for other departments for the utilities and some companies that were divided among different departments. So I went through and corrected those numbers this month so that they were just related to Parks and Recreation. So if you guys have any questions on either of these, I'm happy to answer those.
Thanks. I've got a couple of questions, but I'll invite anybody else to raise anything first.
I guess the obvious question, we didn't end up paying those sums, right?
No, we did not.
Are you referring to the J.D. Williamson sums, Jake?
No, I think he was referring to the larger check amounts from
Yeah.
last month. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only paid our portion last month.
Okay.
Okay.
And the J.D. Williamson, since you mentioned it, that stood out to me as well. So I did some investigating with the finance director.
Okay, I'll look for you in the waiting room.
Those are associated with ODOT for one of the hike and bike trails. And the way it was explained to me is it is reimbursed and it is through a grant, but the way they have to show it going out as an expense has to show up on these reports, but it is put back in there, if that makes sense.
Well, it does, so long as the money is put back in there.
Yeah.
I mean, these are big sums of money. When you add all those line items up, we're looking at in excess of, $140,000, I think.
Yes.
So I think it's important that we make sure that money does go back to where it's supposed to go. I had question marks all over this next to the name of J.D. Williamson. So
Yeah, I did too.
yeah, thank you for explaining that. The one question, well, I've got two questions actually, and this is where my limited understanding of budgetary matters shows up. So as I look on the revenue budget performance, current month is the same as year to date. So are we operating on a May to May budget year?
No, we are not. So we're operating, our fiscal year begins January 1.
Okay.
And you're asking about the column titles going across the top?
Yeah, I suppose I am then, because the current month transaction numbers are the same as that for year-to-date transactions and the same as budget year-to-date transactions. So all I'm trying to do, Andrew, is understand the numbers that I see in front of me.
Actually, that's a very good question, because the year-to-date, I believe, should be higher than the current month transactions.
Well, especially if we're working on a January to January budget year.
Yeah, let me make a note and find out about that, because I don't think it printed. I ran the report, I thought the exact same way, and I don't think it came out this way last month.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look, but you're probably right. I think I would have picked it up.
Yeah, so let me make a note of that, and I will get an answer to you.
Thank you.
I printed my report, but it seems as though I only have all odd numbers.
You mean odd page numbers?
Odd page numbers, because I have the expense report and I have pages 1 and 3, but then I don't have 2.
So you might want to look at the printer instructions when you
okay, because I'm like, I was looking at it and I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. When I scrolled through and looked at it online, okay, I have it in front of me on my computer.
Yeah.
Neil, did yours print on 2 sides by chance? Is page 2 on the back? Oh.
No.
Then I don't know what to tell you.
Right. Thanks for the question.
Neil,
Okay.
does anybody else use your printer?
Right. Yes, but I'm gonna have to do some investigation into that.
Yeah, it's
I got it on my computer, so I can just scroll through.
Right. So, Andrew, I've got one other question here. So as I look at the revenue budget performance report, there's a number for the fitness center of 3,441. That's the revenue brought in by the fitness center. But then when I look at the payment register, and I think if I'm remembering right, the line item that goes to Gami Real Estate, that is the payment for the registration for the fitness center. Is that correct?
It is.
So, that tells me that we're operating the fitness center at approximately an $8,000 loss every month. Or the past month, at least.
It is definitely a topic that I wanted to bring to the board, at least in the near future. I can tell you that the lease agreement has been extended in 3-year increments. So the current lease agreement we are in year 3 of that agreement. It expires in April 2022. And I have been studying the numbers. I think 2020, I really, it was closed a lot of the year, but 2018 and 2019, I think we're pretty consistent at a total loss of at least $50,000 for each of those years.
Yeah.
So that prompted some pretty big red flags for me. And that's something I think that I definitely wanted to discuss with the board.
Yeah.
I don't know that ever was brought to anybody's attention on the board, that we were operating at a loss every month. And we probably, I don't know.
Well, you have to look at the numbers and understand what the numbers are saying. But I mean, let me be clear. I value the fitness center. I think it's very important to the community as being a relatively low cost option for people to engage in healthy physical activity and physical fitness type activities. So, and it's quite possible that after we've discussed it, we would say, it's one of those things that as a board, we value sufficiently to run it at a loss. But I think we need to know that we're running it at a loss and how much of a loss we're running it at, and come to some consensus as to what's an acceptable loss in light of the revenue streams that might counterbalance that. I think it's a very important facility for people that can't afford the Kent State Rec Centre, for example, or can't afford, Life Centre Plus or whatever other facilities there are. So it may not be a topic for in-depth conversation in this meeting, but when we get down to the wire of renewing that lease, Angela, maybe we need to have some more in-depth conversation. Debbie, I know you want to.
Yeah, question. Is that's a monthly payment? Every single month we're paying 11,000? Because that seems high to me.
No, it is 11,000. It ends up being 2,800 a month, and we
Oh,
pay that. We
all right.
pay the lump sum of 11,000 several times a year.
Okay.
Oh,
That's what I was thinking, that 11,000 didn't sound right to me.
Yeah, so we're not going to see that in the payment report every month then. What is
Correct.
it, every 3 months or every?
It's for 3 months at a time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I mean that.
Because just based on what I knew about commercial space rental, I thought, wait a minute, that can't be a monthly figure.
Sounds a little
Right.
Okay. No, that's yeah. Thanks for interjecting there, then, Debbie. I
no
appreciate
problem.
that. Yeah, I mean, if we're running it, at a flat without a profit, I would say it's a great service to be able to run. Again, for those people that can't afford private fitness health facility memberships. So, okay. Those are, I think, the questions that I had on those reports. Anybody else got anything that comes to mind? Okay, in that case, let me go back to page 1. Park report. Sam, want to talk us through any big ticket items?
Exciting, but we're actually keeping our heads above water, which is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Always.
I'll tell you, today, JD Williams did start to pour the bike trails starting behind the old Adams factory, and they are going to pour towards the Brady's Leap. But the one thing they're doing very smart is only pouring in the morning. So basically it can cure by afternoon, late evening, so our little friends don't come and ride a bike through it or carve their names into it. So they're going to do that just every morning, and then they'll actually backtrack, then go from the Main Street Bridge and come back towards Brady's Leap, so they have the egress to come out.
Right.
I don't know exactly how far they got today because I felt like I was standing in the way. It's a very tight spot down there. But so they did start today, but it's going to take them a while because they're only doing morning pours.
Hopefully you weren't standing so far in the way that we're going to see your footprints in that path.
I'll carve my initials in it.
Well, and I was wondering when you said our little friends, I wondered if you meant 4-footed furry creatures too. So,
Well, the
Well, let me
squirrels you can't do anything about.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to add there, Sam? Appreciate the written
Went out, did work on Al Lee's ball field to try and improve some of the drainage onto it, but we need a kind of a little bit of break later in the season when all the ball teams are done. We have to cut a lip on it, but we'll kind of disturb it for multiple days. And that field is just not seeing multiple days of downtime yet. So it'll be later in the season. We'll get in there, cut the lip back, and we should be able to correct a lot of the infield drainage.
Right.
I know I practice with my kids over at that park, and it's better. It's getting better.
It's not there yet, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Sam. I actually misspoke earlier on. We will need to make a motion to amend the agenda, but I'm going to wait to do that until after Megan has given us the recreation report. So we'll amend the agenda before Angela's report because there's an additional item that she would like to discuss with the board. So Megan, over to you for the recreation report.
Okay. Garen, did you want to say anything about recreation, or you want me to go ahead? See. on here? Okay.
He's on. He might not have his headphones in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Looks like he's about to start coaching a game, but
It does look like that.
Wait a minute. I see him.
yeah.
There he goes. I think he's paying attention to us now.
Garen, are you hearing us? You're muted.
I can hear you.
There you go. Garen, did you want to go over recreation or did you want me to go ahead with that?
Oh, I feel like you got it. Well, I'll chime in. I'll answer any questions.
Okay.
Karen.
Way to go, John. Yeah.
Thanks. Looks like spring soccer ended this past Sunday. Our flag football clinic's pretty popular with 45 kids. Spring adult softball, Garen, I don't know much about, but it looks like we have a lot more teams this year than we've had in the past. Sports camp signups are going really well. Numbers look pretty high. I know Kathleen, field hockey, the younger group looks awesome. That's a pretty good number for us. We're just trying to reach out to the 7th through 12th grade.
I'm meeting with Shelly on Tuesday.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I know she's been trying, like she's running trainings with her kids and
Okay.
she's trying to get them involved. So we're going to meet Tuesday and hopefully we can get the
Okay.
numbers up for that and she can help me with that. But
Okay.
that's good news.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I definitely, when I come back on Monday, I will put together an email blast for Karen to put out to the older
Great.
group.
Great.
Tennis lessons, I actually don't know much about.
It's
that
full. She
it
is
is full.
full, yeah.
Wow.
And her next session is almost full.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's the end of the pandemic effect in part, I suspect, which is,
Absolutely.
which is good.
And Sheila's awesome.
Yeah.
It looks like the running club started last week. Fitness classes, we're taking a break from tumbling. We had a pretty big Zumba-thon going on at Stonewater. And we are starting outdoor yoga. There's no fee for that, but donations are accepted. I think, where did we say we were having that, at the Backwood stage, Karen? Yeah. Okay.
The where?
The Backwood stage in Fred Fuller. So not the main stage, but the stage by Pavilion 5.
I know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then over to education, summer camp registration is going very well. I know Davy has a couple of spots left, but pretty much all the rest of them are full. Davy's for the little ones. We did have to move our classroom at Davy up to the cafeteria last minute. So that was a big ordeal. We have 2 classrooms in the basement there, but Jim helped us out with that, and some of Sam's guys move everything from the basement to the cafeteria. So they're pretty much set there for the summer, but we'll go back down in the fall once construction's done. Next school year registration for before and after and preschool is going awesome as well. You can definitely tell we're coming out of the pandemic. Those are pretty good numbers. The free lunch program at the rec, I did want to mention, we also have 2 foster grandparents helping with that. That's a program that they provide volunteers for us for, so that's nice. And then the childcare pandemic support payment, I just wanted to mention, that was actually a surprise. I got an email about that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, that all licensed centers that were open during the pandemic got a certain amount based on what star level they are through Step Up to Quality. And as you can see, Davy and Rec got 6,300. We actually got those checks this week, and we are still waiting on preschool. I think they will get 3,300. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Megan, did you, I heard something this last week or so.
Yeah.
Where there's some group that's trying to get rid of the Step Up to Quality awards.
Yes, I've been getting a lot of emails about that.
I'll bet.
I haven't got to read much up on it, but it is a great program. It does provide quality programming for these centers that, you know, the people that are working there have to have degrees and do so many trainings a year, which is great. I know it's great for those all-day daycare centers that have full-time employees. It's a tough program for us to keep up with, but we were mandated last year in 2020 to be able, if we wanted to provide services to kids that get assistance through the county, we had to do it.
Yeah.
So we're back in it again.
So I can't understand why
Yeah.
somebody thinks it's valuable to drop.
I don't know.
Good idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Debbie, it was in the Sunday newspaper and I was reading it, and I think it mainly affects home care,
Oh, like those programs that are based out of somebody's home?
the families that have multiple kids coming in,
Gotcha.
and they were the ones who were having a hard time.
Okay, okay. All right.
Sorry, I was muted. Any other questions for Megan?
Nope.
No, thank you, Megan. Appreciate that. Karen, thank you too. Appreciate that as well. So before we go to the director's report, then there is an item of new business that we need to discuss. So we do need to formally amend the agenda. So I'm going to move that we add new business as item 5 under the director's report. And Angela will specify the nature of the new business item once she gets to that. But I would like to move that, if I could get a second for
I'll
that.
second that.
Debbie, thank you. And Karen, would you call the roll on that motion, please?
Who was first?
Debbie.
I seconded it. No.
Oh, sorry.
I moved it, Karen.
Our fearless leader made the motion.
Gotcha.
I'm assuming I can do that. I don't usually, but I'm assuming I can.
I think you can.
Thank you. Neil,
Yes.
Jake,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
all in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Angela, I'll pass that over to you.
Thanks. And kind of piggybacking off of what you guys just did with that motion. I don't know if this needs a motion for future, but I would like to permanently add 3 items to the agenda. They'd be the last 3 items of every agenda, and they would be unfinished business, new business, and motion to adjourn.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think that needs a motion as such.
Okay.
I
You're
think
the boss, you're setting the agenda to begin with, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as my report, the master plan update, I met with Pat Hoagland last week regarding the master plan and where we're at with that. I did include in these packets the mail survey that they want to get out ASAP. That's like their #1 priority. They want to get this out first and foremost. So he did indicate that it had already been tweaked a few times, and the board had kind of gotten it where they wanted it, but he wanted it to go out one last time to see if there were any more questions or changes that the board requested. And seeing as I think some of the members have changed, so some of you may not have seen this originally. So I thought that would be a great idea to send this out again and get your input. So I don't know if you all had a chance to look through this, and I wanted to open that up for discussion.
Yeah, I got a couple of concerns, Angela. It's a standard survey. Pat seemed to make a big deal out of this being a statistically valid survey, which I suspect it's not. I didn't want to push him on it. That might have seemed obnoxious, but I don't think he could have told me how it was validated and what the validation data looks like. I don't think it's statistically validated. That said, it's okay, but there are a couple of problems with it. I don't know if everybody has it on the screen in front of them or on paper in front of them. If you go to item 9, let's begin with item 9. The response scale for that, I would argue, needs adjusting. If you look at the column headers, it goes very supportive, somewhat supportive. I'm okay as far as that goes, but then not supportive and not sure, which means that not sure gets a lower score than not supported. And I would probably say that should be flipped.
That should be reversed. Yeah.
So that's actually the lesser of the concerns that I have, because if you go over to item 11 and you look at the instructions at the top of that, it says, the second sentence of that says, if yes, please rate the facility using a scale of 1 to 4. where 4 means the needs of your household are fully met and 1 means not met. And then you see a 5-point scale in the columns, with 2 columns for fully met. And so it's sloppy. And I hate to say that, it sounds rude, but it's sloppy. And I actually went to the website for ETC. It's a measurement sort of survey development company based in Kansas. This is probably just a standard Parks and Rec survey that they do, I suspect. So either they need to make, I suspect what they need to do is they need to get rid of the right-hand column and renumber everything. So it does actually go 4, 3, 2, 1, going fully met, mostly met, partly met, and not met. That's their intention, I think. It may not make that much of a difference, but from experience, I know people tend not to read instructions on these items very carefully. And frankly, if somebody just sees the right-hand column, because the other thing is usually when you develop a survey like this, you go from the lowest response in the left-hand column and work your way across left to right with the higher score in the right-hand column. And they've done it the opposite.
Maybe they have dyslexia.
Right.
It's okay. But
what about the fact that they've got, I mean, like you said, sloppy. They've got fully met as a 5 and fully met as a 1. They duplicated that entire column.
Exactly. And so if somebody just glances at that really quickly and happens to glance at the right-hand side and sees fully met, they're going to answer a 1.
Right.
Whereas in their mind, the higher score should mean fully met. So they need to adjust that scale.
Yeah.
And it's also the same scale on item number 14.
Yes.
Which led me to think if this is quote unquote statistically validated, the validation data must look scary. And I just wouldn't have any faith in the validation data. So if you could respectfully, Angela, pass that feedback on to.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to.
They will have to contact ETC, I suspect, because I suspect this is a survey that is owned by ETC, and I just hope they haven't made any major decisions on it with other clients that they've worked with. So
what's ETC again for my benefit?
It's I just Googled it, ETC Institute. It's a survey and measurement company. They do this. They develop and provide surveys for all sorts of purposes. They're based out in Kansas City, or Kansas somewhere. I can't remember if it was Kansas City, maybe Topeka. I don't know. So yeah, just a few changes there to make sure that we get the data that we need. I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anything else anybody wanted to see changed or any questions on that?
I just have a question to the board as to whether they've been forwarding names to Karen. If you recall from the last meeting, I did ask that you suggested a couple of names each to Karen for people that you think would be appropriate members of a steering committee. If not, then as soon as you can do that, I think that'd be great.
Yes, I apologize. I was kind of checked out since I got sick again and I'm trying to get up to speed. I have 1 or 2 that come to mind, so I'll do that.
Okay. And then maybe
I checked with a few people and I've been waiting on response. So it kind of tells me that they're kind of uninterested because once I posed the question, then asked them again and still didn't get a response. It's kind of
right.
What would be the level of commitment that would be needed? Do you have any idea?
That's the question I got. Yeah.
I asked that question and they said, well, I didn't get a clear answer. Let me put it that way. So I will email him so that because this was in person. So I'll put it in the form of an email so that he has to type out a response and I can forward that to everybody.
Yeah.
That would help me. That would help. I mean, when I'm talking to somebody, I could tell them, what the level of what it would be. It wouldn't be a weekly or whatever. that would
If
help.
you're asking them to commit to an hour once a week, that's different than an hour once a month, for example. you know.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been suitably vague with the two people that I've talked to, but they both seem very interested. So I don't think, and I certainly don't think this is going to be an hour a week. You know, if the
Yeah.
likelihood is, Angela, I don't know if you've done this sort of thing before, but I would guess if we, at most, we would meet bi-weekly, I would think, and most likely once a month. Yeah, I think it's really for a steering committee to act as a sounding board as we move forward. So. Yeah, I've been suitably vague, but fortunately, the two people that I asked, you know, didn't seem to be concerned about how much time it would take. So, yeah, and so perhaps if you could, you know, get some names to Karen and Angela, perhaps we could take a look at the full slate of names at the board meeting in July.
Yes. Which, speaking of the meeting in July, I'm just going to sneak this in here really quick. So the city is going back to in-person meetings beginning in July.
Okay.
Right
So
on.
that will be up to this board if you want to follow suit and have our next meeting in person.
Yeah, right. I was wondering if that was coming at some point.
Yeah. Speaking for myself, I would like to. It's always nicer to see people face to face than on a screen. Not that I don't think your faces look good on a screen, but you know,
There's little non-verbal cues that can be picked up on in a in-person meeting that, you know, can
yeah,
be
you know,
important.
the upside of doing it this way is that it's accessible for any community members that after the meeting want to go in and view it. You know, I'm assuming that if we go back face to face, we don't record meetings.
We haven't.
Yeah. So if we do face to face, we do it in the jailhouse. Is that right? I would guess.
That is what I was thinking. Karen was going to look to see if dates for the remainder of the year were available on our meeting dates,
Yeah.
and block those off. And we'll go ahead and block those off for next year too.
Okay. Karen, do you have any idea as to how many views we get on for these meetings off of YouTube? Do you have
It
access
does
to that?
tell you, I would say between 20 and 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I thought, yeah.
That's surprising.
there
Very.
is some interest, which is a good thing.
Probably 5 of them are me because I keep going back and checking my minutes.
And a lot of them were me before I was hired.
Yeah, there we go.
Well,
So we're not as popular as we just thought. Okay.
that clouds the data a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the community can always, if desired, I believe, it's not a closed meeting. They can always come.
Right. And, you know, my purpose for asking that question, though, was that the jailhouse is not a very large room. And I
Right.
think once you have all, you know, 10 of us in there, you know, there's not that much room for anybody else. So,
Well, it's more space than what we used to have in the office.
Yes.
We just say that.
But we
Yes.
still put the meeting on Google anyways, regardless of whether we're meeting in face to face. Just keep it as a live feed.
I don't know.
I guess we would have to set up a camera, right? And live stream it, I suppose. But we could.
Yeah, like a computer in front of the room, I guess.
Something.
What do you think, Angela?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly do that.
We can
There are
also-
there's other options to consider. I mean, if we wanted to do a larger space, you know, we can always check with the availability of like the police training room where a lot of meetings are held. You know, there's other places that may already be equipped to live stream other city committees.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and I was going to say too, we can always include a blurb on our page that says any interested community members are certainly welcome to attend the meetings in person, you know.
Yeah. And actually, I've just noticed on my own calendar, I'm at an event up in Cleveland at 7 p.m. on that evening, so I'll probably have to do it from my cell phone with earphones in. But I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Because it is mandated that we meet on the third Thursday of every month, isn't it? I think so. It's not like we can change the meeting just because yours truly can't be at it, or it's more difficult. So we certainly won't try to do that. But Okay. All right. Any other items related to the master plan? I noticed that agenda item is master plan update, Parks and Rec budget. Is there anything else to go along with that, Angela?
Actually, I just noticed that today, and I think that was just a typo. They were supposed to be two separate issues, two separate items.
Okay.
So I have it down below. I have the budget down below.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention the annual Art in the Park event is going to move forward for 2021. We didn't have it last year, and from what I'm being told, the year before, half the weekend was rained out. So so we're easing back into it. I think we have, at least at the time I typed this, we had about 70 vendors. Higher than that now, Karen?
Yep, about 87.
Oh,
Wow.
good. Okay.
Great.
Excellent. So we do have, we're planning to have live entertainment on the stages. We have food concessions. So it will be a very nice event. We're going to pray for really good weather. And Branstetter Carroll did say they'd like to come to some of our bigger events because they like to do some in-person on-site surveys, talking to people. I guess they've done a lot of these at events in Greene and Cuyahoga Falls, Talmadge. So they're interested in being in town and setting up a tent and talking to people. They'll be identified in t-shirts, and they want to do that at that event. So I didn't see a problem with that, unless anybody else has any concerns with that. Okay. Moving on, so this is kind of a new item. I was informed, oh gosh, probably my first staff meeting by Dave Ruler and Melanie Baker, that KSU apparently the president has been wishing to put up an outdoor community ice rink for a number of years. And this year he just decided we're doing it and I'll pay for it, which is a fantastic thing. So the city apparently had been involved in meetings, and they authorized the use of Erie Street for this to be set up on. So that is right behind the KSU Hotel and Conference Center. So that road will be closed.
For the whole winter.
Yes. So it's set to open the week of Thanksgiving, and they want it to run through the very end of February. With that being said, I do know that the city has invested a large sum of money to upgrade the electric there on the street, so it can service this rink and the refrigeration and everything that goes with that. From what I am told, I think Dave and Jim Bowling, who's one of the city engineers, thought it was a good future investment because they said they could eventually see future events taking place on that road, like summer concerts, year-round type events. For now, the ice rink, I met with a point person from KSU who I'm going to describe as this kind of fell onto him to make it happen. And he told me it's happening no matter what. If it's he himself who's going to be down there every day, it's going to happen. So the proposal kind of came to me for Parks and Rec to operate and staff this. Apparently, from conversations that I've had, they had approached the Kent State Rec Center first, and they had a long list of questions and concerns. And I believe a lot of my questions and concerns were probably just about the same. So initially, as you can imagine, my initial concerns were budget, staffing. This isn't being planned for 2022. This is right now for, months from now. So I had a conversation with Dave Ruler. I said, I'm new to this budget. I'm trying to get a handle on the current budget that I was not involved in the planning of, and trying to start the 2022 budgeting. I don't know, I don't think the Parks and Rec budget can absorb this.
Mhm.
And he requested that I put together somewhat of a, what I think it would take cost-wise to operate this. And at this point in time, I'm at about 87 to 97,000.
I have to
So-
admit, I had two concerns when I saw this. Number one, that doesn't strike me as a large enough space.
I was gonna say.
It's awfully
Yeah.
narrow. It's like a football field, skinny. But
Yeah.
secondly, how do you manage staffing that when you don't know on any given day who's showing up to use it? That just,
Well, and I asked if they had any information, any detail set, hours of operations, days of the week, any of that. And he referred to a proposal that was passed. And when they were entertaining this idea, he said they wanted it open Tuesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. So 6 days a week, 11 hours a day.
they're out of their flipping mind. And by the way, I'm sorry, here's the cynical me speaking up now. Does this have anything to do with the fact they're taking all kinds of heat because they're closing the community side of the indoor ice arena? Did you guys see all that?
Yeah.
See that?
In
They're
practice.
closing that. Yeah.
It might.
So,
Yeah, it might. Yeah, the 11-hour a day opening is a little nuts, to be quite honest, simply because you're going to end up staffing it for very few people using it. People are not going to come down there, I suspect, until after 5 o'clock. I mean, if kids are coming down, it has to be after school. If parents are coming down, it has to be after work. I could see something like that. Well, let me back up. I actually think it's a cool idea.
It's a cool idea.
And I
No,
think,
I think it's a cool, yeah.
no pun intended.
yeah, I think it's worth, no, it wasn't actually, but I think it's worth trying. But I think the hours of operation is the first thing that needs to be thought about a little more. I doubt the current KSU rinks were ever in use, beginning at 10 a.m. or at least were heavily used at those times. So, I would say from reasonable opening hours would be 5 till 9 in the evenings when it's likely to be used. And at that point, you would know that whatever money you're putting into staffing is being, well used. It would be justified to put that money in, but otherwise you're going to be putting money into staffing for, 1 or 2 people skating around on Erie Street, which is just not good use of funds.
Well, and when my kids were little, we used to go over during the day to Kent State Ice Arena. They had a nice program, lunch and skate. There were some other things that we would do. And that was fine, but they didn't have a person in the rink with you. You were expected to monitor your kids' behavior and that kind of stuff. And so they just had people where you got the skates and running the concession stand, So that was a different story. But I was also thinking about the ones in Cuyahoga Falls. I know the one that's in the Gorge Park, that's not staffed at all. If you want to use that one, you come with your own skates and you use it. But the one then out in the downtown area, I think that there is somebody there staffing and getting skates passed out and all, but not all day, every day at all.
Do they want us to do skate rentals, Angela?
Yes. So I apparently, and I can give you a little more information. I have a conceptual drawing I can forward to everybody, which is just interesting to look at. And it does make it look, very inviting and holiday-ish. And, it is, the concept is absolutely, beautiful. There's still some things to be ironed out. They were counting, I think, on using one of the vacant stores as the ice rental point of sale, or ice skate rental point of sale. Now that building apparently is being sold and there's a bunch of question marks. So now they're talking about bringing in a shack type structure to do this out of. The list, I want to say the spreadsheet that I'm working on it's honestly not as simple as just hourly wages for X number of hours. There's a lot of training that needs to go into this. There's a Zamboni, a few people probably need to be trained on, that needs to go over the ice like 3 times a day.
Oh my God.
There's first aid training and CPR training. We need to configure all of our cash sales and credit card, swipe machines, and make sure everything's secure. We're going to have to buy equipment to do that. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it just gives me a little bit of anxiety because I love the idea. I don't love it in the current budget year without a lot of pre-planning.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like this is going forward and they just dropped it in your lap.
In so many words, however, it hasn't been agreed upon. But when I started talking about the cost climbing, up there, Dave Roller said, well, depending on what that number is, we can see if KSU will split it with us.
Yeah.
So I think he's trying to make it work, the best way that he can.
Well, maybe the city's contribution is that they could have one of their EMS guys assigned over there for the time. Then we don't have to learn CPR and first aid.
Do we get all of Kent State's rental skates then? Are they providing all that stuff, or?
No, the third party company that they're contracting with to erect this, rink, they're responsible. KSU is going to be responsible for all of the materials, and they have to level, bring in certain dirt and things to level underneath this before it can be constructed.
Goodness.
So
we're going to take a heat for this one. All the
that
people
company
who like to complain
is
about things.
Yeah, that company is providing the skates to be rented, but I was told by Kent State it is not to be profitable. Like, they're not anticipating it to be profitable. It is just a feel-good thing for the community.
Well, here's another point. There used to be a number of storefronts. Cutler Real Estate used to have an office there, which we don't have because we weren't getting enough foot traffic and all. But there was an art studio. And the guy that's handling the estate for Ron Burbick, who's selling all those properties, I'm sure they don't anticipate having that road closed and no parking access for the length of time you're describing. How are they going to market that to a potential business owner to come in and fill those spots when they don't have those in front of the store parking spots, and their people can't even go all the way through? That strikes me as somebody else that's going to squawk pretty loud, I would think. Yeah.
So, Angela, there's probably a number of additional discussion points you need to have, and if you need me in any of those meetings, I'll be happy to join you. I noticed Mike Lewis has joined us. Lieutenant Lewis, thank you for joining us. Nice to see you.
Certainly, nice to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, Angela, this might be an appropriate time to just flip the last 2 agenda items that you have, so you can do the item of new business first, now that Mike is here, and we can talk about the 2022 budget at the end.
Absolutely. And actually, just with that 2022 budget, just what I wrote in that report that you have written, really, we're going to discuss it in more detail in July, so we can kind of skip that altogether.
Okay.
So moving on to the new business item, I want to bring it to the board's attention because it has become a big topic of conversation. There is an event that we have learned about that it's an unauthorized event where people are being directed to come to Plum Creek Park this Saturday to celebrate Juneteenth. And they're anticipating, I think last year they came to the park. I was not here, of course. So I know Sam can speak on this. Garen was actually present at this, and not at this. I should reword that. He was in the park. He was not part of this. But I think it was described to me as being about somewhere between 800 and 1,000 people that really, really did a lot of damage to our park and destroyed the park and trashed the park essentially. So this is kind of, there's no point person, so to speak. It's kind of like an underground social media thing that's being shared and passed around for people to attend once again in Plum Creek this year. So knowing what I know from what was described to me from last year, you know, I wanted to make sure the police were aware. I wanted to make sure city manager was aware. So I sent, you know, an email to them. What course of action, if any, are we going to take? We had, you know, are we going to be proactive? Dave Roller did want me to bring this to the board for discussion or any decisions. And that's kind of where we're at.
So after being informed about this situation earlier today, I immediately reached out to Mike. And I had a brief conversation with Mike earlier today. And I immediately also reached out to the chief. And he told me about the conversation that Angela and the chief had yesterday. And then I also reached out to somebody from Kent State that has access to information to find out this unauthorized group is basically a social media group of a few different people that are trying to advertise this event. And as it being an event through some of the Kent State students, and I guess they have some sort of an organization at Kent State, that I reached out to someone that is trying to get in contact with the actual promoter and the creator of this event. And since it is off the record and a Kent State event, the group necessarily has a Kent State advisor that is advising this group. So with that process, I reached out to Dr. Nelson of the NAACP to find out which one of these groups is having this event, supposed to be having this a group down at Plum Creek. And she is doing her due diligence on the side to find out about that. But what she is suggesting is that she reach out to the event coordinator and let them know, like, this is not a sanctioned event by the NAACP. This event is not being supported by any of the local groups of organizations that are necessarily been trying to do behind the scenes work for social justice and for Juneteenth and for work with the NAACP. It has been an she's trying to make sure that they're aware that that is that they know that they are not affiliated with us or as anybody affiliated with the city of Kent.
I have a question for those of us on the board last year. Did I have my head in the sand? I completely missed that this happened. I wasn't made aware.
I was unaware until Garen informed me about the pickup and cleanup a few days later, but I didn't find out about the event because it's a lot of underground and with younger folks it's on Twitter and Snapchat and being passed around.
But my point was, it happened in our park last year. There was a lot of money put into cleanup and fixing up. I don't remember hearing about it even after the fact in any of our reports in July, August.
No, we gave the information to Kevin. I can't.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. We'll just let that lie. All right.
Neil, is it Black United Students that is kind of facilitating this?
No.
Huh.
Okay.
It is not any, because when I talked to Dr. Nelson, she was completely unaware. So any of the Pan-African Studies or Black United Students, any of those groups that try to put on any of these types of events, they talk to Dr. Nelson about. So this is a completely unsanctioned event.
Did it come from Roosevelt by any chance? I mean, like group of kids at Roosevelt that just decided to pull it together? No. Huh. Wow.
So is there anything else that we need to know, or,
we do,
any input you can give us, I think would be appreciated.
Well, when we looked into this last year, what we learned is that this is not a brand new event. This is something that had occurred in another city, a suburb of Cleveland. I don't exactly remember where it was, but it's been going on for years. And for whatever reason, it came to Kent last year. And unfortunately, it got an unintended warm welcome last year in Plum Creek Park because we didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And nobody had gone through the proper channels. Nobody had made any reservations or applied for any permits or made anyone aware that they were going to come to Kent, that they were going to be in Plum Creek Park. So it took everyone by surprise. And as we dug into it a little bit more, as we started to identify a lot of people who were present last year, we learned that none of them were from, I can't say none of them, but most of them were not from the city of Kent. They didn't have any affiliation with Kent or really Kent State University. So this group comes from someplace else. And, you know, I think that one of the things that we have to look at here is they're not going through the proper channels to reserve the park, reserve a pavilion or anything like that. And we have to wonder why. And, you know, my answer to that is because nobody wants to take responsibility or be held accountable for what's going to happen during this event.
Mm-hmm.
So much like last year when, and thank goodness I didn't have to be part of that or part of the cleanup. Many of you did, and I'm sorry for that. But I understand it was quite a mess. There was some damage done. There was just a lot of trash, a lot of litter, literally feces everywhere. You know, this is obviously not something that we want to see happen again, and potentially on a larger, grander scale than we even saw last year.
Well, what are our options? Can we close and barricade the park? I mean, I don't even know. What do we do with this?
One of the problems you have is you already have shelters that are reserved during the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go into this time frame when this group is going to show up. So, and if you barricade something like that, let's be realistic. Is a barricade going to stop anybody?
It can stop the vehicles. It's not going to stop pedestrian traffic.
Right.
So just
unless
to catch
somebody
everyone,
is stationed there, unless law enforcement is stationed there and asking for, do you have permits? Do you have whatever? And boy, that's tough. That's a mess.
So I was I've been thinking about it since I was informed of it today, and it's I know that there are people and families that just generally, without reserving a pavilion or without anything, just go down there and just use the park for just a birthday party or an event or just a small gathering, which is completely understandable. But when we're talking about anywhere from 500 to 2,000 people, that's when we're out of control, and that's when it can't happen.
Yeah.
So from my standpoint, what my suggestion is that we monitor it. We don't necessarily ask for a police presence initially, because I don't want an angry a group of angry 23, 24, 25-year-old people to be approached and they already have the dynamite in their hand, and then they have interaction with the police, and that lights a fire because we're talking about a testosterone group over here that wants to go forward in the cause, and the police that actually has to protect the property. And all of a sudden we're on Channel 5 News about a Juneteenth celebration that's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what I do not want to happen. But if they're a small gather of people that go down there and have their own little event, a small portion of it, but soon as it gets to a point where it's affecting other people in the park, other people that's just visiting the park, anybody that's possibly running, anybody that might be down there just working out, that's when it has to be a point of we have to do something about it at that point. So what I think is that we have a constant monitor of the situation. Barricading the park is just going to once again allow people to it's going to start a situation of moving the barricade, moving it back, and trying to figure out who's going to this birthday party, or who's going to this graduation party, or who's just coming down there to do some laps and play some basketball, opposed to somebody that's really trying to come down there and have a party with big speakers and a DJ and all of that.
Yeah. Well, what's your recommendation, Neil, for who should be there then?
I'm not sure. That's the thing. I'm not sure how we go about having someone monitor that situation, because if once we see, because I've been down to Plum Creek on a Saturday. If it's a few baseball games and stuff going on, there's some people that's trafficking through. Maybe a family that just has a pop-up birthday party, and that's fine. But as soon as we see 30, 40 people under a pavilion, 50 people under the pavilion, cars pulling up and parking in unauthorized non-parking areas, that's when the situation has to start having that's where we got to have a solution to start dealing with that problem at that point.
Mhm.
If I may cut in real quick, obviously having been down there last year, I shared with Angela and Neil, one of my concerns is if something happens, the way that they parked last year and the amount of people, you can't even get through.
Right.
So I was driving a Kia Soul last year, and it took me 35 minutes to get around the park because people were parking through, they're walking straight through. So if someone were to get hurt or anything like that, there's not going to be enough room for an ambulance to come through or things like that. And, and when I say it was 800 to 1,000 people, I mean, I've never seen that many people. They were parking at Looking Glass, and then you start worrying about what happens if there's damages to the preschool and they're parking at vehicle maintenance. And, are we going to be liable for that? And so, that was, when I made a phone call last year, because I'm like, there's, we had an adult softball game going on. That's how I got alerted. There's something going on last year. And so it was just something that was very out of control. And, with everything that's been seen on social media, and they have a professional DJ come in. I mean, he's sharing it, and he's got over 2,000 followers on his page. I mean, this is something that, the more I researched into it, once it was found out, the more concerned I became, because the flyer strictly says part 2. So if part 1 had 800 to 1,000 people, I can only imagine what part 2 is going to have. So.
Is it too late in the day to contact the people who have legitimate access? They've reserved the shelters, there's a ball game or whatever, and to say, listen, for this day, we are issuing passes of some sort or something, or we need to have a guest list or something. And then there's somebody out at the main drive, and we can post a sign that says, the park is completely booked for private events this evening. No access without the proper whatever. I don't know. This is awfully late in the game to find out about it and do something.
I'm not sure that's going to prevent people going into the park, Debbie. I think Neil's right when he talks about the prevention of conflict. Gwen actually alerted me to this earlier on in the week. I've had a couple of phone conversations with Angela about it and a little bit of time to think and talk to one or two other people about it. Maybe another way of looking at this is that it's an opportunity, and there might be an element of naivety in this, all right? But, as I said earlier today to Angela on the phone, there are no good options here. I think it's probably about trying to figure out the best of a bad set of options. One option is to close the park. I worry about, the people who are responsible for manning those barricades and trying to keep people out of the park. It's a recipe for conflict. Somebody's going to get hurt. And particularly if alcohol gets involved, somebody's going to get hurt even worse. We've got to avoid that. So I don't think that closing the park is a viable option. Moving it to Al Lease is something I thought of because there are 2 entrances to Al Lease and there's less at Al Lease that could be subject to destruction, so to speak. But there are neighborhoods close by. So, I think either of those options are really not particularly good. If you try and turn this crowd away, I would worry that other businesses are going to get damaged in the area. And if you really do have between 1,000 and 2,000 people coming to Kent, if that migrates into downtown Kent, you really have a mess on your hands. So, and I'm thinking worst case scenarios there. Maybe another way to deal with this is to look at it as an opportunity to showcase Kent as somewhere that values social justice, that is on board with the creation of Juneteenth as a national holiday, which that was signed off on by the president today, if any of you heard that news. Mike, I know that you and Chief Shearer have been involved in discussions with the various anti-racist groups within the community. I've been in one or two of those discussions with you. Maybe this is an opportunity for us as a community and for our police department to say, we're on board with anti-racist agendas. We welcome you to Kent, but please respect our park because we are going to have to clean up the mess. I don't mind being down there in a Kent Parks and Rec t-shirt, just wandering around, introducing myself, saying, hey, welcome to Kent, please respect the park, don't damage it, and enjoy yourselves. We'll sort of honor the cause, honor the agenda that you have in terms of, Black Lives Mattering and us being an anti-racist community.
I have a question. Is it too late? Sorry, I'm sorry, Steve. I thought you were done.
Well, no, I was just going to say that is hopeful. I certainly don't pretend to guarantee that taking that approach means that there's not going to be any problems. And Sam, I certainly can't sit here and look you in the eye and say, I don't think there's going to be a cleanup afterwards. I think there is, but I think if it's too late to prevent these people coming to Kent, and from what Angela said, they're coming from as far away as Cincinnati. People are coming from a distance for this. I think there's going to be a cleanup somewhere. The question is, how do we contain the cleanup and where do we contain it to? So maybe
part of my question. Is it too late to get some extra porta pots in there, extra big?
You do realize I don't have any employees. It's me by myself Sunday.
Oof.
See, and that's where I agree, Steve, that had this be a sanctioned event with the NAACP, Black United Students, local community leaders, all of those things, that is actually going to be a celebration, I would agree with 100% that we as the Parks and Rec board would get 100% behind that and support that. I would be the first one on board to recommend that. However, I feel as though this is just an excuse for party.
Yeah.
This almost has nothing to do with Juneteenth. This is an excuse for a large party, and I think that it's not a celebration of the Juneteenth, the celebrations, the freedoms, the history behind it. This is an excuse for people to pull up and turn up, because I'm sure Sam will tell us about the level of trash that was left around.
It was ridiculous last year. And not only that, we have softball out there the next day. We have all three shelters are rented the next day. Out there, like the level of trash alone. And then you think if there's broken glass everywhere, we have our camp out there Monday morning, so how do we, stop if a kid runs on glass or something? We're opening up, a whole can of worms. And I agree with Neil, and definitely with Sam. It's, it's something that I've never, ever seen before, so it is an excuse, having been down there. And a lot of it doesn't happen during the day. We're talking about 7, 8 o'clock when I went down there, even 8:30, and it was growing. This was something that after dark, it was just still growing, so now, we've got an issue because there's not very many lights down there. There's not, you have, the bathroom lights, and that's really about it. So once it gets dark, if we haven't contained it by then, what's to say we're going to be able, to then shut it down after dark? It's not going to happen, because I know, that's just going to open up a can where, what happens if we're trying to enforce people leaving the park and people can't see what's going on. And, just some of the things, just to share with you guys, some of the things that I've run across. There's people, advertising that, they're going to go down there and fight so-and-so if they show up and things like that. There are, threats of violence and things that are going to take place down there at the park. And that's where, to me, it becomes an issue, because no, we can't stop everything, and no, we can't stop, everybody from coming, but how do we minimize that, with some sort of presence? Because this isn't going to end well.
Mm.
And, you know, knowing that crowd of people just from even last year and knowing some of the people who were there, you know, and some of the things that they're involved in, I can tell you this isn't going to end well. So
I think there it is. And, you know, Steve, I appreciate the comments that you were making, and we want to be welcoming. But as Neil said, these are two totally different things that we're talking about. So, you know, this is far from just a celebration. This is an excuse to party. It's going to get out of hand, and we have the luxury of knowing exactly what it's going to look like because we already saw it last year. And it only has potential to be worse this year. And we're getting indications that it's probably going to be more people. And, you know, my job is to advise you as far as safety and controlling the matter. And I'm telling you, if you let this get past you, you will not be able to gain control of it. So it cannot be response based. We can't allow people to come in and just see what happens. And if it starts to get out of control, you've already lost control and more people are on the way. And, you know, Garen, your point is well made. Once the party is started, it's social media. It just grows. More people become aware of it. More people will continue to come. And in the late hours of the evening and in the dark, you're going to have several hundred people, if not thousands. It's a situation that we cannot control with the number of officers that we have working the shift. Even if we brought in additional officers, we can't safely go into that environment, even in an emergency. Whether it be a medical emergency, whether it be an act of violence, we couldn't get police personnel in there and we couldn't get EMS in there if we had to. So this is a situation that we need to control with prevention rather than response-based actions. So, and Angela, you were part of this conversation yesterday. If you want to share with anyone who may not be, you know, aware of the discussion between you, Chief Scheer, and Mr. Ruller, I think the agreement was prevention-based and, you know, only allowing in the park people who have gone through the proper channels and saying this is private property. You know, this is a park and it's restricted access to people who have gone through the proper channels of reserving the park and the pavilion for this day. So only people who were part of these two groups are allowed in the park today. Otherwise, the park is off limits to anyone else. And that way, we're not looking on a case-by-case basis of anybody who comes up to the park, asking them their business, you know, what they're doing there, who's coming with them. We can say, look, we have two parties who have reserved this park, and that's it.
Well, but how do you keep them out? Like, so somebody's got to be stationed over at the drive. And secondly, Steve's point about, well, where are they likely going to land then? If they have to leave here, can we anticipate where they will go and what they'll be up to?
Well, we can't anticipate it, but, you know, Aldis Park is another possibility. They could go out there and we would have to shift personnel out there, whether it be Parks and Rec personnel who are already staged at Aldis Park. For all we know, they'll beat us to it and they'll go to Aldis instead of Plum Creek Park. So you have to be prepared for that. There's only so many places that we can go. Downtown isn't really a strong option because we just don't have the parking downtown for it, unless they're going to pay to park in the deck, which they're not, because nobody pays to park in the deck.
Well, a few of us suckers do. But...
So many people have always asked me, where is there a place to park down here? The parking deck right over there. I'm not paying to park.
Right.
But I don't think it'll go downtown. I think, you know, they're looking for an outdoor venue. But you know, our biggest concern out of this is the fact that we don't even know who we're talking about because nobody has approached us responsibly, saying, I would like to have a gathering. I would like to have, you know, a sanctioned party where you know who's coming, you know who's going to be responsible. We have no idea. No idea. And but they're not Kent.
No. So if our intention, and it sounds as though it is then, is to close the park to anybody who's not gone through official channels, we need to get word out there very quickly across the same social media channels that are being used to advertise the event. You know, whoever this DJ is who's saying this is part two, I think we need to reach out personally to this person, and I'm assuming it's a he, and just say, look, that park is going to be closed. You know, and it has to be closed because of safety reasons. Garen's point about the lack of accessibility for emergency vehicles if needed, an ambulance to get into Plum Creek. Our lease is more accessible that way, but so I think if we do a similar social media blitz to what has been done to promote the event, to discourage people from coming, then likelihood is at least you keep the numbers down. Because if people in Cincinnati who are planning on attending learn that the park is going to be closed, if we can gain the cooperation of the DJ who's advertising it and say, look, please don't do this. People are going to get hurt. The facilities are going to get wrecked, but people's safety is a key issue here. Perhaps we can gain his cooperation and have him cancel his presence.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I was wondering if we have any pictures of what went on last year in the cleanup, we could forward to the gentleman that's going to be the DJ. But secondly, we could reinforce to them, we would love to have you go through the proper channels, plan this well in advance for next year, get your permits, get everything you need, in order. We'd love to host you, but we can't have you just this many people show up at a park that's not built for that capacity. I don't know, but
well, and I agree with you. This has sparked some conversation in the office about looking ahead to how can we turn this into a positive in the future. It's not going to happen this year because we're a few days out, but looking ahead to 2022, does this open the door to having a family-friendly event on June 19th? And that's something that we're very interested in exploring, but it's not going to happen this year. My concerns, currently are protecting city property, protecting the safety of the people in that park. We have a graduation party that's going to overlap and a birthday party that's going to overlap. We have Father's Day plans, scheduled the whole next day in that park. And from what I'm told from last year, this was a 10+ hour cleanup job. And this was not just, discarded trash. This is broken glass. This is, liquor bottles and beer bottles and drugs and all kinds of things that were picked up in the park. So, to say in conversations, that were held yesterday, it was, suggested to bring it to the Parks Board, but it was also suggested to, if we were going to choose to barricade that driveway, to place a Parks and Rec employee with a park truck in front of it. And I absolutely do not feel that that is a safe place to put a Parks and Rec employee, because we have no level of enforcement. But then there's also, on the flip side of that, there's a hesitation to have police presence because they don't want to set the wrong tone. So where do we go?
Mm-hmm. And one of the things looking forward for next year, let's be proactively reaching out to the established groups in the area that, like Neil mentioned, and say, we would like for you plan and host an event. We want to have it. We want to make this a celebration, a true celebration, and get it channeled that direction. But again, that's for next year, not this. What's Kent Police suggesting?
For next year?
No,
for this year.
For this year, the discussion yesterday was closing of the park and having somebody stand at a barricade at the entrance to the park. Am I correct in that, Angela?
That's what was suggested.
Somebody as in a police?
No. Parks and Rec personnel. Again, well stated. We don't want to set the wrong tone. The last thing that we want is somebody coming for this to be greeted by a police officer wearing a riot helmet.
Exactly. I agree. I agree
Yeah.
100% with that. But I also agree with Angela's point. Really, who are we going to put there and ask to step into harm's way there of our park employees?
It can be a progressive response. So we can start with somebody, like I said, who is possibly a Parks and Rec employee, somebody who is comfortable being down there. And, we can take a soft approach at first and, tell people that the park is closed and it's only open for the 2 parties that have been reserved. No one else is welcome to the park that day. And if there's a problem, then police can be notified and police can respond. But they're going to start to come quickly. So I haven't seen the social media posts. I don't know when everything is supposed to start and then build from there. I've heard in the ballpark of 4 o'clock. I don't know.
Yes, I've seen the flyer of the flyer, and it says 4 o'clock, and then it says till. So like there's no projected end, because and people don't really realize that our parks close at dusk.
Right.
So anything after that is already trespassing. And,
right. And that was one of the only ways that we could even empty the park last year, is because once it finally got dark, that was a criminal violation that we needed, just to empty the park. Everybody is trespassing. But even when we started to gain compliance, it took over an hour just to empty the park, even more than that. That's how many people were in there. That's how many vehicles were in there. And that's why I say you can't let this get away from you, because there's no gaining control afterwards.
Yeah.
So,
but on the flip side of that, I also don't want to put one of our part-time referees that do soccer games,
right?
And all of a sudden he's park administration. I don't want to set somebody up for that abuse that they're about to take from 150 to 800 young 25 to 30-year-olds that are full of vigor. Right, yeah. In order to try to have their party.
Could we borrow a couple of guys from the Kent State football team and put them in park gear, and then they'll be there with some of us, and to say, hey, it's not happening.
I don't know. There was one Kent State fraternity that was affiliated with this last year. So maybe that's an option if we can reach out to them.
Yeah, we need to talk to them, Mike.
Do you know which one?
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to pull it up in an email from
So,
last
Mike,
year.
while you do that, us asking a Parks and Rec staff person to be down there, to my way of thinking, is inappropriate. I would go down there myself and stand on a barricade before I did that, and I will if necessary. But we got to paint a picture here, right? So let's say I'm down there with somebody else. I don't know, Neil. For what the heck, you and I go down.
Right. Okay.
Just for argument's sake, right? We get a group of a dozen, people, come up to the barricade, and they're determined to walk around the barricade. We can't put hands on them. I wouldn't want to put hands on them, because that starts a confrontation. They walk around the barricade. They'd probably say to us, what are you going to do if we walk around the barricade? All I can say is, I'm going to ask you not to do that, because it's not a sanctioned event. Likelihood is they're going to give me the middle finger, walk around.
Oh, yeah. They're going to give you some choice words.
Yeah. And
me too.
And so it's going to end up taking place anyway. All right. And because other people are going to see that happening, and then they're going to do the same thing. And so, and plus that smaller group gets in there, there's a graduation party going on that leads to sort of conflicts. So I can't see that putting a barricade up and having a couple of Parks and Rec people there asking people not to go in, if everything I'm hearing is accurate, and I have no reason to doubt any of it whatsoever, I don't think it's going to change a darn thing. And Mike, you and your guys are going to end up down there anyway, I suspect, because
because that's what's going to happen. As soon as the first group goes past you, Steve, you guys are going to be calling the police department.
Well, I guess that would be my question to you, Mike. If or when that happens, what would you want us to do? Because I'm assuming you don't want us to try and get into a pushing and shoving. Hell, we all saw what happened on Capitol Hill on June the 6th when police officers tried to hold back an angry
mob.
And if by all accounts this has the potential to turn out similarly. So, am I going to try and hold people back the other side of a barrier? I would be foolish to try to do that.
No, but it's a matter of criminal procedure. So,
Okay.
We have to look at what is a criminal offense and what is something that can be enforced. So by a matter of criminal procedure, you have to have a crime that's been committed, and the elements of criminal trespassing is somebody has to be made aware that they're not welcome on the property.
Okay.
So we don't have any signs, posted at the park for obvious reasons telling people they're not welcome there, because most of the time people are welcome in the city park as long as they're not there after dark. So we need a representative from Parks and Rec, somebody who has authority over the property, who expresses to these people that you are not welcome here. You're not allowed here. And if you continue to be here, it's criminal trespassing. It's an offense you can be charged with, you can be arrested for. And if you don't leave, we will notify the police and you'll be criminally charged.
Okay.
So from that standpoint, again, as a matter of criminal procedure, as pointless of an exercise as it may sound to you, just by having one person down there who represents Parks and Rec, that's actually a step. So let's not overlook that. And, let's not come in with too heavy-handed of an approach, especially when we don't have the resources to back it up. So, we're reluctant to, come out and force on this. Again, that's not the message that we want to send, but it has to start simple. And that can start tomorrow, whether it be on social media or, by some other method, making everyone aware that the park is closed. And even if that includes contacting the media and sharing with them some of the problems that we had last year, and telling them because of that, the park is closed this year and we're not welcoming people. Now, one of the reasons we didn't do that last year is because we didn't want to draw more attention to ourselves and seemingly invite more people. A lot of people don't know this, but Halloween is not a sanctioned event either. That's something that's been celebrated in Kent for decades. It cost us money and clean up, but that's not a sanctioned event. That's that's not something that we ever condoned or welcomed, but it happened nonetheless.
And when people are doing the wrong thing, open containers on the street or the sidewalks or in the yards or in whatever, then that's where then the police have to get involved. If everybody behaves themselves and does what they're supposed to do, it works out.
Right.
So,
but one of the reasons that we had to crack down on Halloween was because it just got way out of hand. We had too many people who were breaking laws, people who were getting assaulted. Some really terrible things happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already happened, with this Juneteenth celebration or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be me at the barricades.
Okay.
So should I block it off at the road and not even allow them to get up the road? I mean, literally block it square flat down on Cherry.
I would say yes, but for the people who have the lawful right to be in the park, again, the people who have reserved it, where are they going to park? You don't want them.
They're already going to be in there at like 10 a.m.
Okay.
What's the latest event that we have that's already been set up, scheduled?
They're both going to be there till 6 or 7 p.m.
From starting at 10 though.
One starting at 10, one starting at 1.
Okay, so that's manageable.
I would suggest contacting that second group and asking them to start it at 12.
I can do that. I know that that's a graduation party and I'm sure they've sent invites out prior.
Yeah. Okay.
But I was going to say, Sam, one of our biggest trucks, biggest vehicles.
It's a pickup truck.
That's what we have. We don't have can't we borrow a big dump truck from the city?
Service department. The service department might be able to help. We use vehicles like that, for the Kent Heritage Festival. Mm-hmm. So that's a possibility. So we can start pooling city resources together to make sure that we don't have the problems that we had last year. So as long as people who are there lawfully are already inside the park and we have somebody who can let their vehicles exit the park, it'll be okay. But I think you may want to contact the people who have even reserved the park and just for safety's sake, in full transparency, advise them of the potential dangers that could happen in the park tomorrow. And again, I don't know when those parties are set to end. But
Mike, I have a question. Is there plan? I mean, I know you guys drive through sometimes, but are there planned drive-throughs? Because, and the only reason I say that is, we've all been young once upon a time. You see the police drive by, and what do you do when you're underage? You throw your can on the ground or whatever you're doing.
No, never not me.
Right, not me.
So I've heard, yeah.
You're smart. Yeah. You're throwing away your stuff because you don't want to get caught, especially, if hey, I could be arrested for criminal trespass. You throw an underage on there and you had to call mom and dad to come, and I mean, that's, like I said, we've all been young once, and, so I didn't know if there was anything like that. Just even a drive. I know when we're playing softball out there, every so often we'll see, someone drive through or, whatever. So I didn't know if that would be an option. you know, just to even, we're just passing through, you know, it's just, you know.
It'll be helpful, but again, you know, there's safety in numbers. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about a large crowd, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable engaging in any type of criminal behavior.
Yeah.
With anonymity, just because there's already a couple hundred people there.
Yeah.
So, you know,
And Sam, I'm thinking in terms of the logistics, if we get a big service department truck and it's there, when the people that are in the park are ready to leave, we've got to facilitate moving the vehicle enough to get them out without opening it up for those that we're trying to keep out.
Look, there's really no way to do it, you know.
I think that having, when they come in, it splits, the driveway splits into two. And if we block one completely, one of the avenues to get in, we completely block it. And then the other one, necessarily, Sam sits at with a barricade, and only the people that can get through there can go through there.
Mhm.
And as soon as there's a problem, that's when he lets them know that they're trespassing. The park's closed for today. And once that situation happens, then if they continue to be, they get unruly, disrespectful, whatever, instead of just turning around, that's when you immediately make that call to the police force. And that's when they come down there, and that's what happens. I totally agree that there's almost no positive option. There's no good option. It's kind of the lesser of two evils at this point of what we can really do.
Well, you said that the one party is a grad party too, so there's going to be people rolling in and out from that. So are we going to stop every single car and ask if they have a grad invite to that party? Can they show some sort of, I mean, that would be impossible, right?
Well, that's why I said you almost have to have a guest list, and or you would assume the people coming know the name of the people that they're coming to celebrate. So
Right.
these folks coming from outside likely aren't going to know that. And so that's one way that you handle it. And at that point, like you said, most of them are already going to be in the park already. It's mostly a matter of getting them out as the other group is trying to come in, you know.
I wouldn't be too surprised, Angela, if you were to contact that 1 p.m. party and tell them we're concerned about the size of a gathering that's taking place later in the afternoon. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they either decided to do it somewhere else, do it at a house, do it at 10 a.m. or cancel it altogether. If it were me, I wouldn't want to expose guests of mine coming to a graduation, if I was the student or the student's parents, to potential risk. I think Lieutenant Lewis is absolutely right when he says we need to do our due diligence and let those groups know so that at least they can make an informed decision about what they do with
Do we have any other shelters in any of our other parks that are available? That
At
we
least three.
suggest? What's that?
At least three is.
Right. We could move them over to Alley's Park if we just give them the informed option to let them know the situation is brewing and give them the option to come over to this park. Because if we could get either one of those groups, if not both, to move over here, then we could completely shut down that park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get those two groups.
I probably wouldn't move them to Alice if that's the place that this group's likely to go, with Plum Creek being closed down. But there's Fish Creek Park, right, Sam?
Fish Creek is open too, correct?
Yeah. And
Like
that
whack-a-mole.
Oh wait, Fish
No,
Creek,
it's not.
it's not open, is it,
No,
Karen?
it's not open. 1 and 3 are open. That's it. And those are 4 picnic tables.
Right, that's in Fred Fuller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a party at Alice.
There is already a party.
Mm-hmm.
That's on Shelter 4 though.
Yeah.
That's the one. Where's that shelter?
Well,
The smallest by the pond.
By the dock.
Yeah, I know.
if people are coming from out of town, which it sounds like many of these are, they're not necessarily going to know to find their way over to Alice, are they?
Not particularly.
all they need is Google Maps and somebody to tell them go to our lease. I mean, if
Right.
word on social media travels that quickly, they're not going to have a hard time finding it.
That's true. Jeez.
So,
Okay, I vote to stick my head in the sand and you guys let me know when it's all over.
Vote denied.
yeah, you won't get a second for that motion.
Not at all.
Sam, I'm not going to leave you to barricade by yourself.
No, nobody. He should not be there by himself.
But my suggestion, as far as one of the best things that you can do for crowd control, is to make sure that it never forms, and that's stopping the vehicular traffic from getting into the park in the first place.
Yeah.
So, they ended up overrunning business parking lots last year, parking in the grass. As long as you keep that traffic moving and those vehicles never stop and people never get the opportunity to even exit the cars and walk into the park, that's a good thing. So we want to keep traffic moving. So making it very clear that the park is closed with, a truck barricading the entrance, I think is a good thing. And just sending a message that nobody's getting into that park. It's closed. There's no party here.
Another thing is I do think it's very important that we get it out there to media and to the social media that this is not happening, because it also takes our community knowing. And as I spoke with Dr. Nelson of the NAACP and with other community leaders, we are completely supporting of the police department and whatever happens to make sure that this event that the destruction of our property in Kent is not going to happen. Because
I think we also put it out at the same time in the same media content that we would love to have a legit group come and form a Juneteenth celebration, planning ahead for next year, getting the permits, et cetera. We would love to have that. That is fully in line with who we are as a community. But what can't happen is this. This is not happening.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I'm assuming there will be officers on call if and when we're not, I'll say if we're not successful in preventing people from walking around barriers. I mean, at that point, we're going to have to make a phone call, right?
Yeah, we're going to have to call on a lot of additional resources to deal with it. If it turns into anything like it did last year or worse, yeah. And
so
obviously there's going to be a significant expense with that as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, these are all costs to the city.
Yeah.
Again, costs and, repair for damages and things like that for an event that was completely unsanctioned, that we never condoned. And, again, if somebody wants an honest, legitimate relationship, they're going to come to us face to face.
That's right.
Introduce themselves, fill out the appropriate forms and paperwork. And by all means, we're going to be very welcoming for that. But that's not what this is. There's a reason that all of this is being done so anonymously. And that's cause for concern.
Yeah.
So if it's not 911, Mike, we'll need to know what the number is. I've got the Kent State Police the Kent Police non-emergency number in my phone. If that's the number we call, I'm good. But all right.
Yeah, we need a game plan. And I also agree that Sam shouldn't be there by himself. And maybe we need teams.
The more people you put there, I don't know. We'll just shut it down, and it is what it is. If we can get those two groups to move, I think we're in better shape.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more people there, the more confrontational it seems. One or two is probably sufficient.
I don't feel comfortable with Sam by himself. I think there should be at least two.
And another thing that we really need to be aware of is if we do completely shut the park down, that just stops people from being able to get in the front. Yeah. You can park on the side and another one of those streets and walk in through the other ways, but that just means that they won't be able to bring large coolers, large speaker equipment, large DJs in order to do that. And then at that point, if we do shut down the front and we do, then the police, if we do shut down the park altogether, then the police will be authorized at that point to go in and remove anybody at the beginning before it gets to 500 people. Right. When it's 2 people or 5 cars or something like that, that can immediately be facilitated out if we can find a way to completely shut down the park.
We can. They're gonna have to cross Plum Creek. Not many people are gonna actually go across the creek to get in there. And the only other way is to come in the backside, and you're still gonna have to park in those businesses and cross the railroad tracks to come in. So it's got good barriers. It's just, the only good thing about Plum Creek is it is a one-way in and a one-way out.
Yep.
So, like Mike said, we just keep them from even pulling in. I think we're winning the part of the battle. Mike, can I ask you another question though?
Sure.
Can we barricade off Looking Glass's parking lot too, even though it's a private business?
We'd have to talk with them, but I'm sure they'd be perfectly fine with that.
I mean, if we get their permission, I'm sure they probably wouldn't care either.
Right.
You know,
And perhaps, Angela, tomorrow, I don't know if you can get in contact with Melanie or with Brad and see what kind of resources they can lend, to help make sure that we can properly barricade the park and, maybe lend some help to barricading the parking lots for any of the nearby businesses where they parked last year. And again, if we are live on YouTube, we don't want to give away our entire operation plan, but we can discuss this more tomorrow. But I think the service department can probably lend us some resources that would be very helpful.
And I also was thinking of the brewery. We should probably notify them, have a conversation with them about taking precautions with their parking lot. Because people may go over their park and try to walk over then,
Well, there's plenty of places up in that industrial estate area. I mean, where the City of Kent offices are for people to park and walk a quarter mile, and they're at they're opposite the side of Plum Creek Park on Mogador Road there. So there's plenty of places they.
Right, but I'm just saying that brewery's got a big parking lot. That would be the next obvious place for people to try to migrate to.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, most of them, they're not from the City of Kent. They don't know the city very well. They're not going to be able to navigate it very well. They're going to, GPS is going to take them right to Plum Creek Park. And as soon as they get there and they see that there is no party, that it's been shut down, that it's been barricaded, hopefully they move along. And, it's up to them to, come up with some type of contingency plan.
Yeah.
And whatever we can do via social media and communications to put the word out that the park is closed and the meeting, the event is not sanctioned, or we can say it's cancelled, whatever. I think that's kind of key to this. If we can cut down the number of people that try to show up, then it gives us less of a problem to try and deal with on the actual.
And I do think contacting that DJ directly absolutely is key, and say, look, sir, if you come, there's, you're going to get in trouble. So
do we know who that is?
Didn't somebody say they saw it on the social media postings?
Let's see.
I know I saw one of the postings. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the name of the DJ was. I mean, I could probably find it.
It
doesn't say the DJ's name on the flyer. It just says Juneteenth celebration cookout part 2, after party locations TBA.
Well, we identified the DJ last year, and so we can contact that person and see if it's still the same person that's coming back. Same thing with the fraternity that was identified as being associated last year. Somebody knows something. There's way too many people who are involved for this to have absolutely zero affiliation with the City of Kent. But there is something that brought them here. But it is such a large group that it just draws a lot of outsiders as well.
Yeah. Does anyone know who the Kent State Advisor is? That although I know if it's not Black United Students organizing this, that might be a moot point. But I wonder whether that person could reach out. I certainly don't mind contacting that person if we can identify who that is.
When I spoke with Dr. Nelson, she was very apprehensive at relinquishing that information of who that person is on that side. But it's because she don't want to kind of violate her sources in that circle. So what I told her to do is if she finds out any information from them, the kind of contact me and let me know. And right before I got on this call, she had called me and left me a voicemail. So I don't know. I didn't get a chance to talk with her, but it's definitely not a sanctioned, organized group on Kent State. So that kind of might be a moot point, but it is a group that's all operating off the record of Kent State.
I can probably find it online somewhere.
So I was wondering who is going to be putting together our statement. Angela, whether that's coming from us, you, or the city officials, or both groups. I mean, I don't know.
Dave had asked me after this meeting, depending on what was discussed here, if the park was going to be closed, to put that into writing and to provide him with some sort of statement, because he wants to be able to share that with city council.
Right.
So that they're aware of what's going on. I am more than willing to put together something. I can send that out in draft form if you prefer, so everybody can take a look at it. It would probably be in the morning, but we wouldn't want to take too much time to turn that around and get that distributed.
Yeah, I would do it sooner rather than later. And I do think the more of us that have the talking points, at least the layout of what the talking points will be, anybody that contacts us, because, you know, our names are on the website, we may get a call. We have the exact talking points, so we know exactly what we're all going to say in a very unified fashion. You know, stressing the things we talked about. Look, Kent community is very diverse. We appreciate our diversity and we value it when we want to celebrate. This is not the right way because proper channels weren't gone through, and it's an out of control event. So, you know, something along those lines so that we are all saying the same thing, basically.
And just so long as it is a united effort, I have no problem doing that. And I have no problem contacting the media and reaching out to them and using their resources to share that information that the park is closed and no one is welcome.
Yeah.
So, but it's concerning that at every turn, people are washing their hands of this, you know, no affiliation whatsoever. Everything is anonymous. Even the ones that we know locally who might have some sort of an idea who might be involved are not sharing information with us.
Mm-hmm.
That is cause for serious concern.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be something to look at going forward. If nobody is willing to come speak to us face to face, you know, for a legitimate relationship and a legitimate gathering, then it's just not going to happen.
That's right.
And I would recommend to you not even booking any gatherings at Plum Creek Park on this weekend next year.
Mm-hmm.
Until we can safely get this situation under control where it's not a recurring issue.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the issue, right? It's making the reservation, being upfront. If you're not going to do that, then you're not going to use our parks.
Right.
Based on what we saw last year, yeah, they've got no credit. So.
I think, you know, it's less is more in these things, right? Just that's the issue.
Right.
This is what happened.
Right. Yeah, we don't have to get all like into the weeds too far. It's just real cut and dry. This is the deal. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, let's not make it overcomplicated. So Angela, if you want to put a statement together and if you can share that first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Again, you know, we can create kind of an email thread or whatever, keep everybody in the loop. Once I get that, and if you want to run that by Dave Ruller or he runs it by council, whatever. So I'll look at that tomorrow morning and then we'll go from there and I'll reach out and make my contacts.
And we're also going to connect with the two parties that are scheduled there and offer them some alternatives.
Yes.
Places.
And I feel very badly for them. You know, this is, you know, something that they've been looking forward to. Friends and family have made, you know, commitments to come in that location in mind, and, you know, something may get lost and people don't make it. That would be unfortunate.
Yeah, I feel bad about that. I feel even more bad that somehow this was not communicated to all of us last year so that we could have been planning for this. Yeah. Anyway,
It's good that we're all on the same page now. And,
right.
You know, speaking on behalf of the police department, I thank all of you for your part in this. You know, and Neil for reaching out to me today, you know, for your help and your assistance in this. So it is important that this is a united effort. We're all on the same page. It's a consistent message, and we're all saying the same things. But since we're all together on this, we'll take the proper steps to make sure that this is shut down before it ever turns into a problem like it did last year.
Awesome.
Steve, is this something that the board needs to vote on? The decision to close the park?
I would think so.
Probably.
I would think so.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what Dave Ruller would want us to do, right? So that
It's all official. And it's going to have to be phrased with a couple of side notes, assuming, we contact the people who have rented it and notify them that there's a situation and we need to close the park. And we're taking the proper steps to do so. And all of the parties are of one voice. I don't know how you frame that, but
I don't know that we can put that much information into a motion. I think we just say something like, and help me here as I sort of think out loud, in light of recently received information concerning a large unauthorized gathering that is to take place at Plum Creek Park, and also in light of the amount of damage and safety to city residents, or concerns for safety to city residents, that occurred last year. Regretfully, the City Parks and Recreation Board has made a decision to close Plum Creek Park on June the 19th from 2 p.m. onwards, or whatever we're going to say. Karen, I don't know if you can. I see you writing. Could you is an email vote acceptable to that, so that maybe you and I over the next hour have chance to, pass a motion back and forth? I'd send it out to the board, somebody would second it, and then we would be able to do an email vote. Is that permissible?
I don't know.
I
I thought it
don't-
sounded good how you put it out there.
Yeah, but I
think
can't
it
remember what it
sounds good.
said. That's the problem.
Well, Karen's writing furiously. Let's see.
Yes, he was writing vigorously. So
In light of recent information concerning large unauthorized gatherings in concern for safety of citizens and property, we authorize
The City
We're
of
gonna
Plum
close
Parks
the
and
park.
Recreation Board regretfully has made the decision to close Plum Creek Park on June the 19th from 2 p.m., 3 p.m.
I would
I
go
would
new.
just say close the park.
Close the park for the
Yes.
day.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
at what time, guys?
Can you read that back again, Karen?
In light of recent information concerning a large unauthorized gathering and concern for safety of citizens and property,
And stop there for a second.
we regretfully
So
authorize closing Plum Creek Park at,
after property, can you add a comma? And then something like, as occurred at a similar event in 2020. I think we need to,
Reference that.
we need to back up our stance here based on what happened last year, and not wanting it to be repeated.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good addition.
and if we don't get in touch with those groups and they don't agree to move, I think we should just have it so closed to the public except for private parties scheduled previously with Parks and Rec.
In the event that we are unable to satisfactorily, whatever, reschedule or move or whatever.
So that doesn't need to be part of a motion, right?
No. Okay.
The motion here simply needs to be to close the park and to specify some reasons why we're doing that.
Mhm.
Okay.
We need to keep that motion
Very
clear.
clean and simple.
Yeah, because that's what we're going to vote on. I think some of that, Debbie and Neil, goes into whatever communication we send out over social media or in the press. but I
Okay.
think the motion needs to stay fairly clean.
Yeah.
Angela, does that sound okay to you? Karen, can you read it back one more time? Because Angela's going to get the first phone calls on this probably. So
In light of recent information concerning a large unauthorized gathering and concern for safety of citizens and property as occurred in a similar event in 2020, we regretfully authorize the closing of Plum Creek Park at
Just for the day. For the day, for
on
June
June
19th.
19th.
For June
Should I
19th.
say for the day for unauthorized events?
I just say on June 19th, 2020.
On June 19th, period.
Garen, do
will-
we have baseball games and stuff scheduled down there for June 19th?
We have a practice, but I can call the guy and let him know. I can move him to a different field. I can move him down to Kramer. So yeah, I can give him a call and kind of let him know. He's very flexible. So
Okay.
So there's nothing else at the park that day?
no,
Okay.
not on my end.
So that sounds like a good motion.
I think so. Does our chair, our esteemed chair want to make the motion, or would you prefer one of us?
No, I'm happy to make that, but we need a second, of course.
Yep, I'll second it.
Thanks, Debbie. And Karen, if you'll call the roll on that.
Steve,
Yes.
Jake,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Thank you. Then I think that concludes our business. Thank you, everyone. Mike, we really want to thank you for joining us this evening. I know that
Thank you. Let's do this in the May meeting next year, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to jump on it next year.
yeah,
Right.
I know this was probably not the way you would want to spend the better part of an hour or so on a Thursday evening, but
Yeah, I'm kind of used to stuff like this.
yeah,
It's kind of what I do.
I would expect so. But seriously, thank you for
Thank you.
thank you for
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Sincerely. Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Folks, I think with that then, Angela, Sam, I'll touch base with you in the morning and just to see if there's anything I can sort of help with. And we'll just keep fingers crossed that this.
Yeah, thanks, Garen and Neil, for bringing this to our attention. I had
Boy,
not heard of this
absolutely,
at all.
guys. We appreciate that. I had no idea.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn, everybody.
I second it.
Second.
Well, you can make it, Neil.
All
Jake.
third.
Neil, you make it. Jake, you second. Perfect.
The motion for it to be adjourned.
So by unanimous consent, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right. Have a good evening.
Stay tuned.
Oof. Yeah, I'm going to sleep really well the next 2 nights.
Yeah, good night, everybody. Angela, do you want to hang on for a second?
Sure.
All right, Sam, do you want to hang on for a second?
Not really.
I know, but you know. All right.
Wait. So, wait, sorry. I was gonna try to get a drink of water. Should I turn off YouTube?
Yeah, please. Meeting's adjourned.
Since we're adjourned, I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
do that.